Joshua, Project Car Media, and I am back from vacation. Right. If you noticed, I hadn't released a video in the last month. That is because I have been on vacation, taking a break from Project Car Media, trying to take a break from my day job as well, getting some things done in my personal life. So it was definitely a much needed break. But I am back now and I've got a lot of cool content coming your way. So, one of the things I wanted to talk about in this episode is while we're on vacation, I had a lot of time to really think and a lot of time to reflect on what was going on in life. I'm really trying to ramp up this YouTube channel, trying to figure out where I want it to go, what I want it to be. And one of the things I have an issue with is motivation. I have a lot of issues with, well, I have a lot of issues in general, but one of them is motivation and just making sure that every day I get up and I feel motivated to work on Project Car Media stuff. And finding stories of that in the real world, especially in the automotive world, is very, very helpful and kind of like helps motivate me to keep going on my dream because of those stories where they did and it worked out for them. There's a performance brand, an automotive performance brand called Callaway Cars. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of it or not. It used to be called a long time ago Callaway Turbo Systems. Yes, it's the same actual family that owns Callaway Golf and a couple other things like that. So the story of Callaway Cars, basically the beginning of it and how they got started and up until their big break is where I wanted to focus today and just let you know like that part of the story really motivates me to keep going because I know that one day, I'll have my big break as well. So yeah, let's dig into it. As you may or may not be aware, the 70s were not like the greatest time in automotive history. There was, cars were so gutless thanks to federal emissions regulations and the oil embargo and stuff like that. Is like the 70s was terrible. I mean, the Corvette had like 100 and something horsepower. It was terrible. But that didn't stop car enthusiasts for, continue to modify their cars and for racing and stuff like that. So this was the case for a guy named Reeves Callaway. And Reeves Callaway was a race car driver, but he was hard up on money. So he got a job at the Bob Bondurant's racing school and worked there for a couple years. And they were using BMW 320i's as their instructor cars, basically as the car for the school. And after a while, Reeves Callaway was thought that he could get more out of the car. He said it handled pretty good, but like he thought he could make it better. And when he left the school, he actually took one of those cars with him to do some performance testing and see what he could do. One of the things he did and what he got famous for was he made a homemade turbo kit for this 320i. Now this was in like 1978. So, and not only was it a turbo kit, but it was a turbo kit that met federal regulation or federal emissions regulations, which is crazy. After he got that dialed in, he got in touch with Don Sherman, who was the car and driver journalist at the time, and invited him to come out to take a look at the car, drive it, and see what he thought about it. And then after he did that, Don Sherman wrote a one-page article in Car and Driver about his BMW and actually kind of insinuated that Reeves Callaway was in the business of making aftermarket turbo kits for these BMWs and other brands as well, like Audis and Porsches and stuff like that. So Reeves started to get phone calls from people in the aftermarket saying, "Hey, I want a turbo kit for my BMW," and he wasn't really prepared to create these turbo kits. He just made one for himself, but he decided, you know what, like I'm just going to do this. I'm going to create these for these people. And that's what he started doing. And that's when he started the business called Callaway Turbo Systems back in like 1980 or something. So after a little bit, this actually caught the attention of the Alfa Romeo chief designer. So like Alfa wasn't doing that great in the US at the time. They only had two models in the U.S. They had the Spider and the GTV6, and neither of them were really that great. And Maserati had just come out with the bi-turbo, and everybody was like loving that car. So the chief engineer of Alfa Romeo got in touch with Reeves Callaway because he thought that he could help them turbo the GTV6, which would put it on par with the Corvette and the Maserati. And the reason that the chief engineer also got in touch with the Reeves Callaway was because he heard that these turbo kits were federal emissions compliant, which means that they could sell them as an OEM option and offer a warranty on them as well. Long story short, Reeves Callaway helped them develop a twin turbo kit for their Alfa Romeo GTV6, and only about 35 of them were made before Alfa Romeo pulled out of the United States. Basically, just didn't make any more cars for the United States. So there's only about 35 of them, or were only about 35 made. They went from 154 horsepower to 230 horsepower. They also did some suspension tweaks and stuff like that. Now, as you can see here, this is one of the pictures of the Alfa Romeo GTV6 Callaway twin turbo. And it looks much crazier than the stock version. The stock version didn't have like this lip kit around the bottom. It didn't have the hood scoop. It didn't have the wheels. I mean, this was basically top of the line, and apparently it just handled amazing. It had tons of power, didn't overheat, didn't do anything, and it was such a huge hit. But unfortunately, Alfa Romeo, like I said, pulled out of the United States. Just kind of left them. Although, Callaway did have some other things they were working on with like IndyCar and a couple other things, but this was like their big, production for a major production company. This was like their big project. This car, this GTV6, was, released as a 1985 model, even though they were doing the work in 1984. So after Alfa Romeo left the United States and Callaway was working on a couple other projects, there was basically a GM testing plant where they were testing the new Corvette. So 1984 was when the C4 Corvette came out, and they were testing it at this GM proving ground. Somehow, one of these Alfa Romeo Callaway twin turbo GTV6 cars ended up at that proving ground, that testing plant. I don't know why it was there. I don't know how it got there. There's no real background on that. But some of the GM engineers and testing drivers got a hold of this car, and they drove it, and they thought it was just amazing. They're like, man, I can't believe how well this car handles, how fast it is, and stuff like that. So they find out that Callaway Turbo Systems created this turbo kit and everything. Corvette's chief engineer got a hold of Reeves Callaway and said, hey, I want you to come work with GM, and let's develop a twin turbo kit for the Corvette. And that was Callaway's, like, in my mind, that was kind of like their big break, right? They were working on a few other projects. The Alfa Romeo thing didn't quite work out, but they had that GTV6, they really did a good job with that, and it ended up at one of GM's testing plants. And if that car wasn't there, if they never made that car, GM would have never found it, and Callaway would have never had a relationship with GM. And if you don't know, Callaway's been working with GM on Corvettes and other things for, gosh, like, since 1985, pretty much, really cemented them as a performance aftermarket brand. And so that's kind of like the point, like the turning point for them. Once they got in bed with GM, they just started, blowing up. And I wanted to show you a picture of, I'm not going to go too much into what happened after they started working with GM, but they did create this right here. Now, this is the 1988, it's the Chevy Corvette Callaway Sledgehammer. They called it a Sledgehammer. And it was, Callaway actually developed this whole body kit for it, and the wheels and everything. And it held the land speed, like the world record for fastest car from 1989 to I think it was like 1999 or something like that, or 2000, I think. And it went 255 miles an hour. I mean, that right there just cemented Callaway as one of the best performance aftermarket brands ever. And as you can see, this one actually just sold on a few months ago on Bring a Trailer for $500,000. And this was one of the original Callaway Sledgehammer Corvettes. I remember reading about this story about Callaway a long time ago, and lately it's just been in my mind. And I love reading these stories where, people are following their dream. I mean, the guy was making turbo kits out of his garage, and then he started making them for, other enthusiasts, and then got the eye of somebody at Alfa Romeo, and then got the eye of somebody at GM. And from there, they just went off, they took off from there. They worked with Ford. They've worked with a bunch of other manufacturers on creating aftermarket stuff. yeah, I just wanted to share with you that really cool piece of automotive history, just to let you know that stories like that are what motivate me to keep going every day and keep going with this YouTube channel and believing that one day it's gonna, it's going to be big and I'm gonna have a lot of fun with it. And just to let you guys know that I'm back and we'll be putting out videos every other Tuesday. I have a lot of really cool stuff lined up. The next couple videos are going to be really cool and kind of like a little bit of a build series per se, but I'll show you what I mean by that on the next video. And then I've got some really exciting news for Project Car Media coming up in a few episodes. It's definitely going to be a game changer for me for Project Car Media, and it's really going to help with the future of this channel. So I just wanted to say thank you so much for watching. By the way, it looks like I went over 400 subscribers while I was gone. I think I'm at 415 subscribers now. So thank you so much for subscribing to my channel, for watching my videos. I really appreciate it. I'm working on some merchandise to start offering you guys, and that'll probably be coming up in the next month or two. And so I'm really excited. I got a lot of cool stuff going on. Really just trying to push this channel forward. So thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe. And I hope you guys have a great week. We'll see you next time.